Yep. All right, I think we have everyone here, so I will start the live portion, and then we will get started. So, one moment. All right, well, thank you everyone for gathering here this afternoon for this organizational meeting of the Monroe County Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. With everyone here, we'll go ahead and call that meeting to order. We'll start with the calling of the roll. When I call your name, you can just respond by saying here or present. Start with Mr. Fred Ansello.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Ansello is here. Mr. John Botello.
You got it perfect. Here.
Mr. Botello is here. Legislator Boyce.
Here.
Legislator Boyce is here. Ms. Hughes-Smith.
Here.
Ms. Hughes-Smith is here. Ms. Catherine McCardle.
I'm here.
Ms. McCardle is here. Mr. Matthew O'Connor.
Present.
Mr. O'Connor is present. And Legislator Michael Udelson.
Here.
Legislator Udelson is here. We'll move to our non-voting members. Mr. Michael Garland.
Here.
Mr. Garland is here. Ms. Helen Frank.
Here.
Ms. Frank is here. Mr. Liam Smith. Be muted. Mr. Liam Smith.
Yeah, I'm here.
Mr.
Can you hear me now?
Smith is here. Yes, we got you. And then Ms. Leah Worley.
Here.
Ms. Worley is here. All right, well, we'll go ahead and do some introductions because we do have a few other people on the call besides appointed members. So we'll introduce those people when we get to that portion. But just wanted to start by saying thank you for being here as we kick off this organizational meeting for the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. My name is Jack Moffitt. I'm the clerk for the Monroe County Legislature, and I've been asked by President Joe Carbone to serve as temporary chair of this committee until the committee does elect a permanent chair. Since this is the first meeting, I thought it would be helpful to start with introductions. It's a little difficult, when you're meeting remotely, as you can't, simply go around the room and everyone's screen looks a little bit different. So if, in the interest of efficiency, I'll go ahead and just kind of call on people in a similar way to how I called the roll. And if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, maybe give a few points about your background, and any information you would like to share as far as what you hope to accomplish by being a member of this committee. Once we go through the members, I'll turn it back over to Director Garland because I know there's some members and representatives from the county administration here. If you'd like to introduce those people, and I think that'd be a good way to proceed. So we'll start with Legislator Fred Ansello.
Thanks, Jack. I've been a county legislator for 8.5 years. Lived in Monroe County all my life. I love the community. I feel strongly that things are going on that are changing the climate, and I believe strongly we have to act and act soon worldwide. But just what we can do here and will help, of course, and maybe set an example for the rest of the world. Any way we can save, it is good. Thank you.
Thank you, legislator. Next, I'll turn it over to John Botello.
So you got my name correct, John Botello. I live in Spencerport. I've been in Monroe County here now for 4 years or so. I work for Wegmans, where I'm a facilities design engineer. I work on anything that's not a store for Wegmans, so our big warehouses, our offices, refrigeration systems. So before that, I worked down in Corning, New York for Corning Glass, Corning Incorporated, for 6 years. My wife's family's from Churchville, so I have some roots here. And transparency, my father-in-law is Steve Brew, who I think everyone knows is a legislator. So I have 2 young children, and I'm myself am pretty interested in what's going on with climate and how we can have a positive impact on the future. So I'm here to learn and help in any way that I can.
Thank you. I'll next turn over to legislator Carla Boyce.
Yes, good afternoon. So happy to be here this afternoon. And I am a county legislator, as most people know, and I'll be finishing my my 9th year in the legislature during this second tour of duty. Prior to that, I served as a legislator for 11 years, from 1994 and for 11 years, and then served on the town board in the town of Mendon. So I've had various government background. I also have a full-time job that I have, and I'm also in graduate school at St. John Fisher for mental health counseling. I'm really excited to be here. I think that the most important thing is that the youth voice was heard, and as the youth development coordinator at CCSI, having youth voice in anything that we do is important. And so I heard you all loud and clear that you wanted to make a difference in your community, and I thank you for serving. So we look forward to those ideas, and we'll move forward and make this world a better place in this community.
Thank you, legislator. I'll next turn it over to Sue Hughes Smith.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me join you today. My name is Sue Hughes Smith. I have lived in Monroe County since 2006. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, but grew up downstate. I work as an adjunct professor. I teach environmental health at SUNY Brockport and environmental studies at RIT. And I'm very active in our community for advocating for climate policies. I co-founded the Rochester People's Climate Coalition, and I'm involved currently with Citizens Climate Lobby as their regional environmental justice coordinator. So, I'd like to see us make some progress on reducing emissions.
I'll next recognize Ms. Catherine McCardle.
Everybody, I can be called Kate from here on out. Make a note of that. So happy to be joining all of you today as a lifelong resident of Monroe County, currently in Penfield, New York, and an employee of the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute that is located at RIT. In the last 6 years, have been working as their outreach and education program manager, which is really connecting the work of the engineers and the technical kind of solution-based work that the Institute is doing, connecting them and the resources that come through the state with both public, private relationships and projects, but also academic work and research. So have spent my entire career as an environmental advocate. Before being at RIT, my entire job has been in nonprofit, in the nonprofit sector, looking at environmental health issues, reducing toxics. Have secured significant funding from EPA and other both federal grants and private grants to solve these really complex issues. And some of the most exciting work in the last couple of years has been helping municipalities across the state develop climate action plans and roll those out. So couldn't be more excited today to get started, and I am excited to be part of the group.
Thank you. I'll next recognize Matthew O'Connor.
Thanks so much, Jack, and welcome everyone. Like Sue Hughes Smith, I'm a lifelong New Yorker, having been born and grown up downstate, but I came to Rochester in 1982 after finishing my bachelor's and master's in mechanical and aerospace engineering from Cornell University. I did join what was then called Eastman Kodak Research and Engineering, the home of the Gambit cubed overhead reconnaissance satellite, which was just declassified by the National Reconnaissance Office back in 2011. Spent essentially 20 plus years at Kodak, 12 years in small business. I did retire in 2013, initially as the acting vice president of quality assurance for what was then Excelis Geospatial Systems, now has become L3Harris, $4 billion entity right here in Rochester, New York, between the radio and overhead businesses. I since joined Monroe Community College as an assistant vice president in economic development, also the dean of career technical education programs. I did serve as a town councilman in Pittsford and just finished up my second 4-year tour of duty last December. I'm in the midst of retiring again, but I'm excited to be on the committee. I think there's tremendous technology available to us in the current day that we can certainly deploy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and become much more energy efficient. So thanks again, Jack, for the invitation, and looking forward to working with all of you to make a difference.
Thank you, Matt. And then I'll next recognize Legislator Michael Udelson.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being willing to serve. I'm looking forward to working with you. I am the legislator for District 13, which encompasses most of Henrietta and a little bit of Pittsford. Like my colleagues, I think I speak probably for everybody in the legislature, and to echo what Legislator Boyce said, we so appreciate the voices of the young people. When I joined the legislature, which was only at the beginning of this year, I was just so impressed by the students. Some of them were part of this group, but a much wider group that came to every legislature meeting and advocated for this. Although I'm new to the legislature, I served as a longtime recreation director in Henrietta and then as the town supervisor in Henrietta. So, you know, have always been very interested in the issue. Although it doesn't dominate the news the way other things do, it certainly, I think we all agree, is one of the most pressing issues facing us today. So really looking forward to this experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator. I'll move next to our student representatives. I'll call on Ms. Helen Frank.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm Helen. I'm a rising senior at Brighton High School. I have worked with RYCL, Rochester Youth Climate Leaders, and am involved with the Climate Club at my school. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you and learning more with my peers as we continue to improve the state of climate for my generation and future generations.
Thank you. And next I'll call on Mr. Liam Smith.
Hi, thanks for having us here today. I'm glad to see that this committee is up and running. So yeah, I'm Liam. I just graduated from high school and now I teach at Middlebury College. I helped start Climate Leaders and really spearhead to climate action in our county. So I'm really glad to be here today, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. And next I'll call on Leah Worley.
Hi everyone. I'm Leah. I go to Webster Thomas High School. I'm going to be a junior, and I'm going to be taking over the Earth Club at my school, which I've been doing for the past couple of years. I've always been very passionate about the environment, and I've never really known how to help. You know, as a kid it's kind of hard but this opportunity is so amazing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it, and I'm just hoping to learn a lot and help in any way that I can.
Thank you. I'll next recognize Mr. Mike Garland, and then Mike, if you don't mind, I know you have a few other people from your team and from the administration. When you're done, if you wouldn't mind just introducing those folks as well.
Sure thing. Well, thank you, Jack, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to finally be here. I know there's been a lot of effort behind this initiative, and it's great to see so many dedicated environmental stewards here in one Zoom meeting. Unfortunately, we're not together, but hopefully at some point in the near future, we'll be able to actually physically get together. Again, I'm Mike Garland. I'm the Director of Environmental Services for Monroe County, and I've been serving in this capacity for 12 years. Our department here is very diverse. We are about 300 men and women strong. We have about $100 million annual operating budget. We're a big portion of, obviously, county activity here. Our focus is primarily in water, wastewater. We have a solid waste recycling and resource recovery division as well. Engineering and facilities and county fleet, a lot of energy consumption and a lot of energy production. So it's really this department that I think is best positioned to help move this effort forward. We work very closely with the other physical sector departments in the county, both parks and the airport and transportation and others that obviously will contribute to a successful climate action plan. My background's in civil and environmental engineering. I joined the county in 1996 after spending several years in private consulting, both domestically and internationally. But I grew up here in Rochester, and it was great to move back home. And I love working for the county. It's just a great level of government to really make a difference in the community. So I look forward to this great initiative, and we've got a great team. I've got a great team behind me here at DES to help move that forward, and looking forward to this, the input from this advisory committee and helping shape and implement this, this plan. So there's a few folks with us today that are on the call that Jack mentioned. Miles Cunning is from the serves in the Bell administration in the executive's office, and he was interested in participating and in this initiative going forward. Miles, do you want to say hello?
Yep. Hello, everyone.
There's Miles. All right, great. Great to have on board.
Great to be here.
Also from on the team is Tina Stevens, and Tina Stevens is in DES. She's been working in our department for a number of years. She's actively involved in a number of committees, particularly our Recycling Advisory Committee, and so very familiar with the implementation, administration of committees like this. So Tina has joined us, and she will be serving and capturing minutes, getting agendas out, and communicating with you as a committee. Tina, is there anything you'd like to say?
Oops. Sorry, everybody. I'm in my office, as you can see, so I was clicked off the camera, but as Mike said, I've been here for 11 years. It's a great place to work, and we do really great work here. I've always been proud to communicate that to the community. So I look forward to helping you guys out in any way that I can.
Thanks, Tina. And last but not least, I invited Joe Van Kerkhove, who is an engineer, came from private consulting, joined DES, and I've assigned Joe to be the project manager, very successful, seasoned engineer and actually physicist who can help move this project forward. When we have capital projects or when we have plans like this, we often need someone dedicated to help administer, move a technical plan or a project or program forward. So I want to make sure we have the right resources here to be able to meet, an aggressive schedule and what I expect will be a lot of work. So Joe, you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be part of this. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if my audio is working. So glad to be here.
Okay. I think that's it, Jack.
Thank you, Mike. And we'll hear more from Director Garland later. He's going to give a presentation and kind of overview on current county sustainability practices. Next section on our agenda is goals and objectives. And Everyone, upon notification of your appointment to this committee, should have also received a copy of the legislation that authorized the creation of this committee. And that authorizing legislation is important in as so much as it really kind of sets the parameters from which the legislature would like the committee to operate. They are fairly wide parameters. There's a few things that the legislature has asked this committee to do beyond just merely the creation of a climate action plan. I think it'll be helpful, obviously, having 3 county legislators on this committee as you go forward. They'll be able to kind of keep that, the legislative intent as part of the discussion to make sure that, the ultimate final production report, closely resembles, what the legislature was looking to receive. So some of the stipulations, so to speak, set by the legislature, they would like the committee to identify and review practices and policies that may impact environmental sustainability and identify any practice and policies which may reduce residential and commercial environmental impact. That's kind of the broad overview, broad charge of the committee. They did ask that any practices or policies identified or recommended as part of the climate action plan also include a cost estimate and timeline for implementation. It's going to be important for the legislature and I believe the administration, as they go through and prioritize the recommendations set forth in this plan and also to build any recommendations into the county's long-term spending plan. The committee will have access to any relevant information from all county agencies. That includes departments, divisions, various boards, and also access to county employees. There's certain areas of operation within county government that the committee wishes to learn more about or has questions on. We'll be able to make available, county employees, subject matter experts, to help aid the committee in their discussion, their deliberation. This committee is somewhat unique and it does have a sunset clause in so much as it will terminate upon the final issuance of the climate action plan. One of the things the committee could contemplate would be the creation of a long-term or a permanent committee to help guide the county in the adoption of the plan and also as to evaluate future decision-making related to environmental sustainability. Those are really the only parameters that were set by the legislature in establishing this committee. It does ask the committee to issue its plan within 12 months of the appointment of the committee. That is set forth in the establishing resolution, but obviously, that much of this was done prior to the current COVID-19 pandemic. So, should that deadline need to be altered, I don't want to speak for the legislators, but I think there would be obviously a willingness and understanding should that deadline need to be altered in any way. With that, I'll turn it back over to Director Garland, who has a presentation he's going to walk you through on current county sustainability practices. And I think we're going to try to share his screen, so bear with us for a moment as we get that set up.
Okay. There we go. Okay, can folks hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Mike.
Yes.
Great, thank you. You might see other people's faces on the screen that might be sort of eclipsing part of the slide. I just tapped the small tab there on the left-hand column, and that kind of removes all the, if there's any blockage there. But anyway, thank you. Jack asked me just to do an overview of things that we've accomplished at the county, things we have underway, as well as work that I expect we will be doing in the future and certain tasks that this committee can undertake and advise on here in the near future. And I can talk to you about the next steps associated with actually beginning the development of a plan. I can talk to you about that at the very, very end. And we've had committees like this. The Recycling Advisory Committee was formulated back in the early 1990s and still exists today. It's a very relevant committee made up of subject matter experts around the community. And the county itself gets a lot of good advice from those on the committee, and I expect this committee to do something very similar now that we're squarely in the 21st century, and obviously climate is a very significant challenge for us. So I'll walk you through some of the things we've done that we're really proud of, and some of you have seen this. I know I probably talked to Liam about a number of these accomplishments. Kate's very familiar with them, and those legislators have probably approved a lot of things here in this summary, but this is just sort of a quick look at what we have done here in Monroe County, and it really breaks those sustainability achievements really break down into 6 categories, as you can see in the slide. First being green buildings, and I'll drill a little deeper into the green building where we are with that. Fleet, I mentioned that fleet is a responsibility within DES, and what we do with alternative fuel vehicles, and electric vehicles and fueling stations, talking a little bit about that. Solar and alternative power, lighting with our facilities, resource recovery, both in terms of power as well as water treated through our Pure Waters wastewater utility, as well as education and outreach. And I know each of you, in talking about your backgrounds, have a connection with one or several of these areas. And these are really the areas that will become important to look at climate action and greenhouse gas reduction. I mean, really, that's our goal. And one thing to bear in mind, and it's been pointed out in the past, we've got a lot of nice discrete projects. They're integrated in many ways. They're wonderful community environmental benefits. But what we want to be able to do is take these and take credit, if you will, for how we're reducing emissions, how we're limiting our footprint, and then identifying what other initiatives and projects and programs we can do. But I'll jump into our green building policy. And I joined the county back in 1996 when County Legislator Boyce was in her first tour of duty, but it was in 2008 that the county legislature adopted the green building policy, and it requires all county buildings, new construction, major renovations greater than 5,000 square feet to follow a green building design policy. Incorporate green building design principles to the maximum extent practicable using the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED certification. Many of you have probably heard about LEED certification. Maybe you work in LEED certified buildings. Monroe County's got a number of them. And as you can see on the left-hand column, our most significant accomplishment, I feel, is the LEED Platinum, our crime lab at the corner of Broad and South Plymouth is LEED Platinum certified crime lab, the first of its kind. We've had a number of other projects, both gold, silver, and certified level, majority of which are at MCC, including the downtown campus. And so we're very proud of that, and that's really become our vernacular in terms of our building design. I know John from Wegmans, I'm sure they strive to incorporate green building design principles to the maximum extent practicable. And so this has really become industry standard in many respects. A lot of the approaches that were innovative back in early 2000s have now become code or requirements for design. So we felt like we led from the front on that and led through example in the community. Got a number of other green infrastructure projects throughout the community. We have a Monroe County Stormwater Coalition made up of towns and villages in the city and the county where we work collaboratively to secure funding and implement green infrastructure projects, some of which we're very, very proud of. We do have an internal green building infrastructure review team. That's a requirement of the policy that reviews each and every one of our capital projects for the level of greenness, if you will, if it's affordable, if it's not having an impact on programmatic requirements. But we've been recognized for the accomplishments there. And again, I expect this policy will continue forward. And obviously the Climate Action Plan will touch on this. Fleet, I talked about the county's fleet. It's pretty self-explanatory there in terms of the quantity of vehicles we have. This is across the county with the exception of the sheriff's vehicles. We manage all county departments As you can see there, including the airport and all other county departments, whether it's light, medium, or heavy duty vehicles. We maintain those, and we have a significant number of alternative fuel vehicles, as you can see there. We have 31 hybrid vehicles, 6 fully electric vehicles, 3 green fueling stations that are available to all municipalities here in the county. One of the challenges, obviously, with green fuel is creating the infrastructure to be able to fuel them. And one of those is on Scottsville Road. One is up in Irondequoit at Van Laer Water Resource Recovery Facility. And then the other facility was built at the City of Rochester's DES Operations Facility on Mount Reed Boulevard. And we also have 3 electric vehicle charging stations. The county is recognized 3 times by the Government Fleet Magazine. Nationally, we ranked 2nd in 2011 and 2013. Very proud of that accomplishment. We went up against some other municipalities that ranked quite high or more temperate climates. In California, Sacramento, they might have been first, but we're really proud of the accomplishment. And I think it was because of county's dedication to alternative fuel vehicles and developing the infrastructure. But we know we have a lot more work to do. We know, electric is really the wave of the future. And we expect over the next 10 years, you're going to see significant fleets, significant conversion of fleets away from the E10 or the ethanol blends into plug-in hybrid electrics as well as electric vehicles. So again, the county's made some great progress. We need to take credit for what we've done as we look at our carbon footprint, but also identify where there will be opportunities going forward. Okay, alternative energy, pretty cool stuff. Let me move something out of the way here so I can see that. So really, we have 2 primary sources of alternative energy. I know many of you are already familiar with this, but we have, it was at the time, Western New York's largest municipal solar installation, over 13 megawatts of power on county-owned facilities, one in the northwest portion of the county at our water resource recovery facility in Greece, and the other in a former closed landfill in Penfield. Very significant effort on our part. We don't have any other major solar projects underway right now. However, again, I think that will be a highlight as we look at opportunities for the county to reduce our carbon footprint. Another project that's been kicking around for quite a while, we call it Waste to Watts. Monroe County owns and operates, owns and holds a permit for the Millseat landfill in the town of Riga. It's operated by Waste Management. And it's primarily a municipal landfill. 90% of the refuse that goes into that landfill is generated from within Monroe County. The other 10% is just from the outskirts of the boundaries of Monroe County. So it's a very local landfill, if you will. And we harness the methane from that landfill and produce 6.4 megawatts of power there. And certainly would look for other opportunities to harness other potential future gas. Obviously, methane being a very significant greenhouse gas. Again, we are looking for other opportunities, both in the renewable energy field, but those are some of the highlights on areas that we're particularly proud of. Okay, let's see. Moving on here. There we go. Okay, the next one, I won't ask for a show of hands, but I hope you've all been through the Eco Park and our frequent flyers there. If you're not, please get on over to the Eco Park. It's something we're really, really proud of. It was really sort of it was a later chapter in our recycling history in Monroe County. Those of you who were living here in the early 90s knew that obviously there was big changes across New York State and across the country in terms of residential recycling. Monroe County was in a leadership position there to implement a comprehensive curbside recycling program. Again, began back in the early 90s. Monroe County built the Monroe County Recycling Center, which still stands today. You can see that from 390 as you're heading north. Early in the 90s, we also began a household hazardous waste collection program. And that was not so much out of solid waste or recycling motivation, but was more out of pollution prevention, keeping household hazardous waste out of the sewer systems to protect the collection system, the plants and the operators, and obviously ultimately the environment. We also have some work that began with our pharmaceutical collection, similar to the household hazardous waste collection, to keep pharmaceuticals. I'm sure many of you have participated in that pharmaceutical collection, whether it's been a mobile collection or at your local police station or at the eco park. But obviously we want to keep that pharmaceutical waste out of the water waste stream, out of the solid waste stream, and have it properly disposed of. We presently collect it and take it to a waste to energy facility. But obviously there's a public safety benefit there too, obviously making sure that pharmaceuticals don't fall into the wrong hands. But from an environmental standpoint, that program began back in 2008 and continues on as a component of the Eco Park. Again, the Eco Park opened in 2011. It was one of its kind in the country for a one-stop drop for hard-to-handle recyclables. The list continues to grow there in terms of what we're able to take and divert from the landfill, if you will. Again, household hazardous waste, electronics, appliances, freon-contained appliances, textiles, books, the list goes on and on, scrap metals. We're always looking for opportunity, even bulk styrofoam, even small scale things like flags that need to be properly, ceremoniously, not destroyed isn't the right word, but to be handled properly. And so we find outlets for this material that we want residents who want to do the right thing. We try to make it easy for them to be able to take this material there and make a difference in the environment. So again, these are things that we can look at in the climate action plan to determine, what more can we be doing and how can we help the environment to increase diversion. And it's really all about diversion. Again, our recycling program, Curbside, has been kicking around for a long time. We also have an industrial, commercial, institutional recycling program that's out of our transfer station, out on the same complex. It's a big blue building that you see from 390 next to the residential recycling center. And so in aggregate, we collect and process about 80,000 tons of recyclable materials on an annual basis. And we continue to find ways to increase participation and increase materials that we can accept. And again, there's obviously been some big impact in the recycling industry, as we all know, because of Asian markets, downturn in the Asian markets. So again, we continue to still have a resilient recycling program here in Monroe County, which I'm really happy about. Composting. Many of you may know that Monroe County, through a long-term intermunicipal agreement we have with the city of Rochester, we provide full service solid waste management services for the city of Rochester. They handle the collection. We handle everything else. They bring us anywhere from 20 to 30,000 cubic yards of leaf waste, leaves that they collect. And we have a very sophisticated scheduled program to create a high quality compost that's part of a give back program for the community. Town of Chile also sends us leaves too. We've got the equipment, we've got the know-how, we've got the technology, and we're really proud of how we handle our yard waste. Now we know that the industry is migrating. When we talk about organics, is source separated food waste, and that's obviously certainly on the horizon. So anyway, those are some of the things that we've been doing as it relates to recycling and composting, and I'm happy that the Eco Park continues to be a very, very successful high demand program, and that we still have a resilient residential recycling program here in Monroe County that we can take credit for. Okay, the area that's probably more in my area of expertise is water resource recovery. The old vernacular of sewage treatment and wastewater treatment and pollution control facilities has gone by the wayside. The industry is recognizing what we're doing there is a very vital function in society, both from a public health and environmental standpoint, and water resource recovery is really what it's about. And we've got Monroe County has a very, very sophisticated water resource recovery collection system, a tunnel system, interceptor system, and 2 treatment plants. We're really the envy of many utilities across New York State because of our tunnel system. And again, all these facilities that we talk about, we may be able to schedule some meetings once, we're in a better place to tour some of these, because it's nicer to be able to see them up close and smell them up close than to actually just talk about them. Anyway, Van Laar being our largest plant, 135 million gallons per day that we treat. That's our permitted capacity, but we have the capacity to treat up to 600 million gallons per day during wet weather events, storm events. Primarily, we see that those high flows because the city of Rochester is in a combined system, which means that rainwater and sanitary sewage flow in the same network of pipes. That's the way water infrastructure was built in northeastern cities, including Chicago, New York, Boston, Buffalo, Rochester. That's how the cities were built back in the day. So we have to be able to manage that rainfall. Other cities now have they separate the sanitary versus the stormwater flow. But we have a deep rock tunnel system here. It was one of a kind in the country. One of 3 communities in the country took advantage of federal construction grants back in the 80s and 90s to build this labyrinth of, it's almost like a subway network of a large diameter deep rock tunnels to be able to store rainwater when the surface system isn't able to handle the flow. And it was Rochester, Milwaukee, and Chicago that took advantage of federal construction grants. There's many other cities now under consent order where there are no construction grants available. At the time, it was a $500 million project, which obviously in today's dollars is much more. Anyway, just something we're very proud of, and it's very unique. And I just wanted to give you that backdrop just for those of you, because you're all dedicated environmental stewards and love this stuff. So I just wanted to brag about it a little bit. And anyway, we also have a treatment plant up in the northwest quadrant of Monroe County. It's a smaller plant, built in the 70s. It was part of the Pure Waters utility that was built, taking many small treatment plants offline in towns and villages and creating more regional treatment facilities. And it's allowed us to be able to more effectively meet regulations, offer lower rates for residents, and have a more resilient utility here in our community. And we have annual open houses at both locations. And believe it or not, we even serve lunch and people actually eat it there. So I guess we must be doing something right. The New York Water Environment Association has often recognized Monroe County as being a leader in our field, and we're certainly proud of that. I'd like to talk about it. But again, that will all dovetail into as we assess our carbon footprint, right? There's a lot of energy used to be able to treat wastewater. And there's opportunities to recover more energy from the wastewater. So again, we will take a very close look at that. Lighting, obviously, Monroe County's got a significant footprint in terms of real estate. I think we may be the largest real estate owner, if you will, in downtown Rochester. So that takes a lot of energy. And there's been a number of projects to convert lighting to LED technology. Obviously, we're all familiar with that. If you're like me, I'm cruising around always looking for that last remaining light bulb that I forgot to convert to LED somewhere in a basement or in a closet or something. But we're going about that process here in Monroe County, and we've got a number of projects underway doing that. In fact, Frontier Field, we were able to meet Major League Baseball standards and be able to convert their lighting to LED. So seeing significant cost savings. One particular project that's not in my wheelhouse, but it's in the county DOT's wheelhouse, no pun intended, is their highway lighting rehabilitation. You may or may not know that Monroe County owns the highway lighting system on 490, 390, 590, 104, 404 throughout the county. And so when you see those lights down, that's the county's responsibility to replace those and maintain those. And so a project through the capital budget and the legislators on the call, and those of you who may participate in the planning board are familiar with these projects that have been funded over the years, and those are underway. We've got a number of sections of those expressways completed and more work that's scheduled throughout the balance of this year and on track for the north and southeast parts of the county into 2021 and 2022. And the benefit there is more reliable technology, purer light, better light for the traveling public, and obviously energy saving. So again, these are things that we will be taking very close looks at in our climate action plan as we assess, do our inventories. Okay, education and outreach. I know some of you, particularly Kate, you know, that's in your wheelhouse and in your area of expertise. And the county has obviously a primary obligation to communicate with its residents, the businesses, the industries here in the community, so they can do their part. We know the county can't do it alone. And that's why we have many relationships with our community partners to be able to get the word out and participate. And that's key, right? That's key to our success, because if we don't have the residents and our business community participating, that's going to only, if we don't have buy-in and partnership, it's going to only impact our ability to be successful. So those are just some of the stats in terms of our outreach, either through our website, through social media, our Recycle Right campaign, which is relatively new. We kind of reinvigorated recycling, or recycled recycling, I guess, I don't know. But nevertheless, it was one that we got a lot of traction with in the community through surveys and finding out what is it that people need and how do they need to get the information. Some people said, listen, we just need something we can put on our refrigerator, so when they don't get into a fight in the kitchen trying to figure out what isn't recyclable. So we have here, maybe some of you have hanging on your refrigerator, a magnet that we've had a few versions of this magnet created over the last few years, but this one, and Tina will attest, is our latest one, hot off the press, maybe just a couple days ago. I'd be happy to get everyone some of these magnets. It can really help people identify what they can, quick guide. We had a local RET illustrator, a nationally recognized illustrator, create these exquisite compendium of recyclable, easy to recognize items. I know New York State really likes the work we did and wants to utilize that, and we'd be happy to share that because we think it really helps tell the story for residents who often don't have time to recycle right. So we want to make it easy as possible. And again, if they recycle right, we can take credit for that in terms of how we are diverting waste from the landfill and thereby reducing our carbon footprint. So we've got a Stormwater Coalition, Recycling Advisory Committee. Now we have our Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee as well too. And we've been recognized both by the EPA and another national award. We received a Bronze Telly Award for 2 great videos that Tina produced that are on our website. If you haven't seen them, go to the County DES website and you'll find an outstanding video on our recycling facility, and as well as the EcoPack. And they're nicely done. Feel free to share them far and low, and you know, make your family members view them at, you know, holiday parties and things like that. Okay, so that's kind of where we've been, and you know, those are all, you know, obviously focused areas. A lot of them are discrete projects. We've got to find a way to tie these together and take credit. I can tell you the county has not done greenhouse gas inventory. We don't know our carbon footprint. We know we're doing things to reduce our carbon footprint, but this plan will help us really identify that. Before I talk about the plan and kind of where things are at, there is a few areas that are of focus that I think will be of particular interest to this committee. And I won't drill down in detail of each one, but these could be future meeting topics and could be actions taken by the advisory committee to advise the county on, and the legislature on, hey, we think this is a good idea. We think the county should adopt this, either administratively or through the legislature. I've outlined them there. I'm sure many of you already know what they are. The Climate Smart Communities program is really a prerequisite in many other communities, as you probably know, here locally have taken that pledge. Even here locally, Brighton and Irondequoit, City of Rochester have taken that Climate Smart Communities pledge, and it requires 10 elements to become registered. And like I said, it's a prerequisite often for grant funding. So it really behooves us to be able to take that pledge and live up to the commitment within that pledge, but also set ourselves up for grant funding opportunities that could help offset the cost of a plan and things like that. It was introduced in the county legislature in April, Earth Month, and but President Carbone at the time thought, you know, this might be a better task for the advisory committee to evaluate and make a recommendation back to the legislature. So we can share that information with you. We can even talk about it a little bit today. I don't want to go as far as to say it's a no-brainer, but I think we all would agree that this is something that's important for us to do. We've got more information about what that program is. Okay, just quickly highlighting Complete Streets policy. Those of you who like to ride your bike and use alternative modes of transportation know that very common for communities to adopt a complete streets policy that really encourages design to take into consideration all modes of transportation and to have accessible mobility in its design projects. What I can tell you in an effort that we were looking at back in 2019 was solidifying the work that the DOT had done. Our county DOT had said, yeah, we do that already. We already know the elements of what goes into a complete streets policy, but it wasn't formalized. So we created something, it was like a memo that summarized here are the elements that would go into that. Well, they're still following that. So I feel good that we're incorporating elements of complete streets into our county road projects, but it hasn't been formalized, if you will, whether it's been adopted by the administration formally or by the legislature. So again, that could be something this committee might want to look at and make a recommendation on. We could bring in, the subject matter experts on that, and we could send out a draft to you as well, and well in advance. Again, make it a topic of a future meeting. The Energize New York Open Sea PACE program. I know Liam, and we talked about that when we met last year, as being a great opportunity for local private commercial business owners and building owners to make capital upgrades for energy efficiency in a manner that it makes it really more attractive for them to do that than they would otherwise do. And this program is made possible in New York State. There's other states have adopted it as well too, but it provides private building owners financial capital opportunities and long-term financing that can transfer with property ownership, making it more attractive for them to undertake an energy efficiency upgrade in their building, right? And if we have more businesses doing that, that's only going to collectively help us in our community. There were certain elements of that program a number of years ago when it first came out that really put municipalities in a bit of a liability and a potential cost for them that wasn't recovered. But now they made changes to that, and I can tell you, I think it shows promise, and I think it can be something this committee can dig into, we can evaluate, and we can make a recommendation. Lastly, another area of focus, and again, this isn't by a comprehensive list, it's just something that I thought we would talk about as a group here today, again, is clean energy communities. That's a New York State NYSERDA program, again, helping governments develop clean energy goals. Again, this might fit nicely into our climate action plan in developing near-term and long-term energy reduction goals. So these are really just some highlights of programs that are out there that this committee can start sinking its teeth into. And maybe I'll just use this opportunity to talk to you about really where we are with the climate action plan development. There isn't a whole lot to share at the moment. And obviously, COVID-19 and our focus on that has obviously we dedicated a lot of our efforts to that. We began a consultant selection process. We are still working to identify a funding source for the program. We've made great progress within our consultant selection. We haven't finalized that, but I expect we will here in the near future. What does that mean? We know we need to bring in a consultant to help us develop the plan. The City of Rochester did. The other communities, whether they're some of the other plans that were developed at a national level, or I should say other states or other large counties, always bring in expertise to help develop a plan. And we feel that's prudent. One, we want to develop a plan that's in ways consistent with the City of Rochester, right? We don't want to be working at odds. We want to be working in parallel. Also, we want to align with New York State and their goals, their climate goals as well, too. So we feel that it's important to bring in a consultant to help us develop that plan, facilitate that plan, help us with our greenhouse gas inventory. We begin that plan, we're proposing in 2 phases. First being county government operations. Kind of take care of our housekeeping first, what we're responsible for, what we can control the most. Look at county government. How can we, what is our carbon footprint? What can we do to reduce it? And what are some realistic but aggressive goals that we can set for the county? And what are the environmental and benefits and the economic impacts? All that would be assessed. The second phase of the plan we're anticipating would then be a broader community plan. It would go beyond just Monroe County government. It would be available for other governments to follow, other commercial, industrial, or institutional, or even residential, where we as a community can work together to accomplish certain goals. So that takes a broader look. That takes a little bit of the plan would take a little bit of a deeper look into the community outside county government itself, and finding opportunities. What is our collective carbon footprint of Monroe County? Not just the government, but all of us here that live here and do business here. What is our carbon footprint, and what are the ways that we can reduce that? And again, set aggressive but realistic goals within a reasonable time frame. So what I expect to happen here in the near future, I'm hoping that we can focus and identify a funding source. What we would then do, we certainly have funding set aside for 2021. We're trying to find it here in 2020. What we would do is then come back to the committee, and we do this all the time here in DES, with a scope of work, a draft scope of work, that we would sit down initially with a consultant. And again, our RFP that went out identified those two phases and talked broadly about what it is. We will select what we believe the best firm is based on their qualifications, and worked with them to develop a scope and get input from you, and give you the opportunity to be able to react to that scope and provide input, so you can see what the consultant's roadmap will look like. So I expect that to be happening in the next 2 or 3 meetings, that we can roll up our sleeves on that and start to work on developing and finalizing that scope. Once that scope and fee is finalized with the consultant, it would then go back to the county legislature for approval, like the county legislature does for any of our architects or engineers. And then it gets entered in, it becomes a contract for the county as one that we would manage, and that's where Joe Van Kerkhoff would come in, and that's where his expertise is managing teams like this and shepherding the program forward. And that's what this committee is all about, to advise on this every step of the way and be involved in decision making. So that's really it in the summary for me. I know I covered a lot of ground, hopefully not too much. I know Jack sent out a copy of this, but if any of you have any questions, there's all my contact information. And at this point, I think you can stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, Mike. Our next item on the agenda is the election of officers. I had sent out, I think when we were discussing our first meeting date, that when the legislature authorized the creation of this committee, they did set forth 3 officers' positions, one being the chair. One chair's duties are to have general supervision of the work of the committee and preside at all the meetings. A vice chair who would serve and perform the duties of chair in the absence of the chair. And the third is a secretary who's really responsible for notifying members, time and place of all meetings, ensuring the accuracy of the minutes of the meetings, and performing any other duties designated by the committee. The legislature thought it was important in setting up the secretary position that they do not require that the secretary be a member of the committee. Traditionally, and Mike could speak more to this, in a lot of these committees, it's helpful to have someone internally within county operations in a role like that. Tina Stevens from DES, as Mike introduced earlier, is here today. She serves that role for the Recycling Advisory Committee. And in my conversations with Mike and others, I thought, we all thought she would be a great fit to fulfill those duties for this committee as well. I talked to a few of you that expressed some interest in the chair and vice chair position. I know that there was, folks wanted to learn a little bit more about, the division of labor, the scope of the committee, the type of work that was going to be involved. So if there's not objection, we can hold open the election for chair and vice chair and move forward with the election for secretary today, and then we would proceed with the election of chair and vice chair at the next meeting. So if there's no objection to that, we can go forward at least and have the election for secretary, and then hold that election for chair and vice chair at the next meeting. Not hearing any objections.
No, thanks, Jack. That seems bona fide.
Okay. Not hearing any objections, we'll go ahead and open up nominations for the position of Secretary to the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. We do have an interest stated by Tina Stevens to serve in that capacity. So if there's a motion to nominate Ms. Stevens in that role, you can make that now.
So moved.
This is Matt O'Connor. I'll second.
Boyce, and seconded by Matt O'Connor. Are there any other nominations for the position of Secretary to the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee? Hearing none, I'll declare the nominations closed. And all those in favor of nominating Tina Stevens as Secretary of the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, Tina. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
Tina.
Thank
and
you
as I
all.
said, I'm happy to, or, myself, Mike, and Mike Garland are happy to have conversations with anyone who's interested in, serving in the position of chair and vice chair. Now that you have a little more understanding of the committee roles, responsibilities, duties, et cetera, we'd be happy to have any conversations with any interested parties in serving in those roles. Our next item on the agenda is, a more open discussion on how we want to proceed with meeting dates. Mike, I know this second Thursday is not a good date for the folks in DES because this is the standing meeting date and time, I believe, for the county's Recycling Advisory Committee. Mike, I think you had foreseen, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably getting onto a monthly schedule for this meeting. Is that correct?
I think that would make the most sense. Yep.
And did you have and I think, obviously location-wise, we're, remote right now. Mike and I have talked about a few meeting locations that would likely be central, something that would have, parking available at no cost and things of that nature for when we do or are able to resume in-person meetings. But I guess I'd open up discussion on if there is a preferred date and time. I think if we can keep that consistent, it would be preferred. But Mike, I wasn't sure if you had a suggestion you wanted to throw out there, if there are any other members of the committee.
I'd just like to point out to folks that the planning board, those of you who have served on the planning board would know that that varies between the third, fourth, and fifth Thursday. It doesn't mean we can't have it on Thursday. We would just want to make sure we don't bump up against some already scheduled planning board meetings that have been scheduled, if Thursday turns out to be a good working day for everybody.
So it sounds like if people want to stick with Thursdays, Mike, it'd be that first Thursday is the one that's not presently conflicted from the county standpoint.
Yep, that's correct.
How do people feel about the first Thursday at this kind of 3:30 time frame? Is there anyone who has, knows that would not fit in their regular schedule?
Jack, I think that's as good a time as any right now. Matt O'Connor here.
Yeah, and understand, as time goes on, things will surely change, and that this doesn't need to be set in stone. But I think at least having a regularly planned meeting date and time will be, important as the committee continues to do its progress. So at this point, we'll plan on having a standing meeting for the committee the first Thursday of each month at 3:30 p.m. Tina will communicate on location, whether it's going to be held remotely or an in-person option. I think at this point we're likely continuing remotely as the governor's current executive order on remote meetings extends through September 4th.
Jack, Mike.
I have one thing that, just given the fact that we are a climate action committee and we're trying to reduce emissions, maybe we should continue to meet via Zoom for in perpetuity. Just a thought. I mean, actions speak louder than words.
Certainly. And it's we'll just have to discuss with the county's law department as well, because there are certain actions that the committee is covered by open meeting law, and while while the governor's executive order is in place, which suspends those requirements, when that executive order eventually is rescinded and those requirements remain in place, there might be a need to have in-person meetings, but that's an ongoing discussion we can have with the county's law department. Matt, did you have something you want to
Yes,
share on that?
Jack. I wanted to just recommend that to the extent a meeting could be combined with a tour of a county facility, that might be advantageous to a number of the citizen volunteers on the committee. I'll just throw that out, and perhaps we could carpool there or take a bus. Could have the meeting even on site at, say, Van Leer or whatever. Just an idea.
Absolutely, and that was something I think Mike shared, and we talked about a little bit, and I know he'd be eager to get everyone out to some of these various county facilities and show them around, so that's a great.
Yeah, that'd be a real plus.
Happy to.
All right. Is there any other matters anyone wanted to bring up for this meeting?
Thanks to Marlon. Yeah.
Sue? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we're going to have any discussion of the scope. I thought Mike's 4 recommendations were all kind of no-brainers, rather the easier things to do. I'm wondering, you know, if we want to start some conversation about other goals, or do we want to wait till next time?
Maybe what I could offer there for the group to talk more about is, do you want more information on those 4 program areas, to talk a little bit more about them in terms of a recommendation? Then as it relates to, I think maybe your question is scope of work of what's the scope of the climate action plan itself. Again, we're a little bit a ways from actually handing something to the group to digest, to react to, but we should have something here in the near future. I don't know if that answers your question, but happy to respond.
I guess, Mike, I know what those 4 programs are, and I think it'd be great if other people got up to speed on what those 4 programs are. And I know the Clean Energy Communities, NYSERDA, should be coming out with additional, carrots, I think in October or so. So it would behoove us to move so that we're eligible for that grant money. I'm thinking more about just emissions generally. In New York, like 40% of emissions come from transportation, and another third are coming from heating buildings. And what seemed missing to me was any look at how we are going to implement policies and strategies that are going to shift the broader community onto electric technologies. So that just is one thing in addition to what you have that I would put on the bucket list.
Yeah, no, great point. And where I would envision we will spend a lot of time talking about just what you outlined is in the phase 2 of the climate action plan to the broader community. I think maybe using your words, that's beyond just county government operations, right? What we control on a daily basis here in Monroe County government, but really impact to the traveling public, to those that are big energy consumers here in Monroe County. Phase 2 of the climate action plan would look at that. Yeah.
Sure, but Mike, if you haven't even chosen a consultant yet, and you don't know if you have funding for the consultant for 2020, right now you're looking at them starting their work in 2021. Am I misunderstanding something?
No.
And how long does it take for them to come up with their plan? Because they took the city something like close to a year.
And it could be within that time frame. Again, we will work out a scope and schedule, but the way that it works in terms of procurement, just getting it through our county legislature, getting a contract signed, getting them under, you're familiar with that. It will take some time, but I can assure you, once we have the team in place, we'll move quickly. High priority.
For sure. It just seems like a little bit of a disconnect between saying, oh, this committee is going to be around for a year, yet this committee is going to be here. So we have a climate action plan. I hope we're not going to just wait for the consultants to come up with the plan before we, move forward with some other stuff. Yeah.
Yes, understood. And that's what I was thinking, maybe some of those 4 items, and maybe there'll be more we can talk about while, say, you're reviewing or refining that scope. There might be some like low-hanging fruit, if you will, some no-brainers that we can put into motion and go into the ledge and say, hey, this is a recommendation from the committee, and that your work has already started.
Can I ask
Jack,
a question
Mike.
on this, Mike, if I don't want to interrupt Matt?
Oh, no, go ahead, John. Please do.
So it sounds like there's an RFP out there, and for maybe folks who don't do this a lot, RFPs, request for proposal. Is that something that's available for us to review? So maybe we can get ahead of the process a little bit and see what's out to the consultants?
The RFP itself, which was a document that was shared with them, we could certainly share with you. That's just really the document that we issued through our county purchasing department. You can certainly take a look at that. Again, we're in the final stages of going through the responses, and we'll select the consultant. And then what will be probably the most meaningful document to look at, John, would be what we come back with in terms of a scope, and against a starting point. We'll get it far enough along where this committee can sink its teeth into and provide some meaningful feedback. But I'd be happy to share the RFP to your question, John. I don't think there's any problem with that. Again, it's a public document.
Sure. Yeah, I know I do a lot of RFPs, and just seeing what was out as an RFP could help us maybe when we're looking at what that scope is.
Yep. You know, that's a great point. So, yeah, I've got it. I mean, this is it right here. So it's, you know, there's a lot of boilerplate in the back of it. And again, it's a qualifications-based selection process, but I'll work with Jack and we can get this out. We'll send this out to the group.
Yeah, thanks, John. Matt O'Connor again. John actually made one of the points I was going to make, so thanks for suggesting that, John. Jack and Mike, when Supervisor Bill Smith asked me to spearhead clean energy community designation for the town of Pittsford 3 years ago, I liaised with the city of Rochester and realized they have a tremendous amount of knowledge and I would say best practices that they were more than willing to offer to me as an individual spearheading the town effort, which was eventually successful. Let me just recommend that we think about, and you may have the answers already, Mike, given your role with the county, what the city can teach us, if you will, from a benchmarking or best practices standpoint, because I think there's a tremendous amount of learning there that we could take advantage of as we move forward at the county level.
Yeah, the one thing we don't want to do is reinvent the wheel, and we don't want to go down a path in a way that might be inconsistent with one of our community partners is coming in. So great point, Matt. I work very closely with my counterpart, Norm Jones in City DES, and I know, we share information and knowledge and experience, and that's a great point. They've been down this path, and so we could certainly bring them in and learn from them as a community partner.
Matthew. Oh.
Go ahead, Kate.
Thanks. I was going to make the same point that Matt O'Connor did, so thank you. And I think that it would be reasonable to suggest that maybe the city could come in as a guest speaker, Mike, give us those lessons learned. And additionally, from my experience in the state too, just even that we have benchmarks of communities that have the gold standard or the silver level qualifications, and just they have documents of lessons learned and what they've been doing for the last 5-7 years. So even just providing this group with that oversight to see other communities that we can learn from as well around the state.
I just have another suggestion for folks. Maybe everybody's read the city's climate action plan. It's exciting reading. If you haven't read it, you might want to actually pull it up. It's on the city's website. If we're going to align the county's work with the city and with the CLCPA, it would behoove everybody to know what those documents say. So if anybody needs directing to them, I'm happy
we can send it out as part of today's meeting minutes.
Yeah, great.
Terrific. Yeah, great point, Sue. Again, Matt O'Connor, and just wanted to mention, toward the end of my tenure with the town of Pittsford as an elected official, I did reach out and work with RIT and the Pollution Prevention Institute, and they're quite a resource as well. They did an energy audit on Town Hall and several other buildings, and we found the information to be really, really worthwhile. So part of what I'm suggesting is there are a lot of resources out there, and I found this in workforce development. A lot of folks are doing a lot of similar but not necessarily integrated odds and ends out there, and maybe part of our coming together as a climate advisory committee might be going out and benchmarking who's doing what for whom and when, and most importantly, where their funding is being derived.
Right.
Because we in the town like to follow the money. So we aligned ourselves with the state right away, and that's one of the reasons we went for clean energy community designation from NYSERDA. We got in under the wire, and we were able to claim one of the $50,000 grants, which was a huge bonus for us. So just another thought to throw out there and ponder.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we can go ahead and take a motion to adjourn until our next scheduled meeting, which will be Thursday, September 3rd at 3:30 p.m.
Move to adjourn.
All right, thank you, Legislator Udelson.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.